Let's bring the focus back to Parliament House now. Joining me is the independent member for Warringah, Zali Stegall. Thanks for your time. I noticed yesterday during the debate about the emissions standards for vehicles, you didn't really appreciate the Coalition's line of attack. Interesting, Zoe Daniel also got up and made her point to the Speaker. But you're basically saying it's back to the past with the Coalition's Tony Abbott-style campaign. You represent a former Liberal seat, in fact, Tony Abbott's former seat. How do you see this debate happening now? Do you think the Labor Party's not standing up for this reform sufficiently, that you've got to bolster them? Is that how you read it?
Well, I think there's a couple of aspects. I strongly support the measure because I think with our commitment to net zero, and I should say Coalition has committed to net zero as well, transport is 20% of our emissions, and so we must reduce emissions in transport. Fuel efficiency standards, which is a budget mechanism for car importers, will do that. It is not a tax. So what I really observed in question time was the Coalition and the Leader of the Opposition just repeatedly following that line of really characterising the measure as a tax when it's not. It's a budget measure for car importers, and it's a choice, ultimately a choice provision for Australian consumers.
Do you think the government will land a deal with industry to take a bit of the heat out of it? Because at the moment, industry is driving parts of the car industry, not all, some have welcomed it, but others are saying it's going to add tens of thousands of dollars to some of the popular vehicles.
Well, I think a lot of that's been walked back because at the end of the day, I think it's important to understand it's a mechanism that importers will have a certain budget of emissions if all the cars they import. Now, they can choose blow all your budget on a couple of models that will be high emitting models, or bring in more choice of low emission models. So it won't, I would dispute, and there's been already leading industry experts come out and dispute the idea that it is going to increase the price. What it does is it increases competition and choice. Now, we've just come off 2023, the deadliest year on our roads since 2018. So choice and safety standards and efficiency standards in our cost of living crisis are incredibly important. And I find it really bewildering to watch the Coalition go back to Abbott-era scare campaign instead of being constructive on good policy.
You've got quite a percentage of tradies in your electorate, and this is being pitched as a tax on tradies. Are you concerned that the politics of that are difficult to fight?
No, because what we have is really a very high uptake of electric vehicles. We know car manufacturers are building and introducing electric models of utes, of tradie vehicles, of vans. So what we want is our consumers and our tradies and small businesses to have the choice. Without fuel emission standards, car manufacturers will dump the worst vehicles in Australia. And that is not to anyone's advantage.
The politics of this in Warringah, can you give us a sense of how your constituents look at the prospect of EVs and more of them becoming available across our roads?
Very strong demand, and really the uptake has increased significantly. I think some of the measures put in place have been effective, and the information to deal with range anxiety and all those things have changed dramatically. We're seeing the fast charging infrastructure being rolled out, and also, let's get real, we have no Australian car manufacturing industry. We rely on our imports of vehicles, and we want as much choice from those manufacturers as possible. They have pretty much all committed to phasing out ICE vehicles. So the world is going in this direction. The question is, are we going to delay our transition, or are we going to embrace choice and more, I would say, cost effectiveness for our customers?
The tax changes have gone through the Parliament now. Again, many people probably receiving less of a tax cut than they would have otherwise in the seat of Warringah, given the changes. How's it been received?
Look, I put it out to the community to get their feeling. I felt fairly aggrieved by the process the government followed when it came to this change. I think there should have been more consultation and openness about where they landed, why they landed on those thresholds. But ultimately, about 80% of the feedback I got from my community was in support. People very generously stating, whilst they are receiving less of a tax cut than initially planned on, they recognise that people are hurting in the community and want to see more people get a tax cut.
Zali Stegall, thanks as always.
Thank you.